Share your screen. Let's start step by step. We have exactly hour. And we're going to go over the whole stages. And because we didn't have the recording in the beginning, we go like from the very, very beginning. Let me start, okay, and then I will give you the lead as we go along, okay? We're talking about this application of ueconomics. Give me please control and okay. And here stage number one, getting the data from Uganda Board of Statistics. We got the data as a PDF, and everybody should have a link to it in the Academy City. After we downloaded those two PDF files, we turn them into an Excel file. It's being kept in the static for now. And here we go. Now, we'll talk about this one in a second. But those are the two files we first prepared. We didn't put them right there in the beginning. First, we built up the structure, which created this directory input, and then we put those Excel there. So how did we go about it? Okay, we created in the application ueconomics, we created a file called data processing. When we double click on it, it is already an object that handle the data. Okay, and then we'll see in a minute what does it do. Stage number one, we haven't started from scratch. We use an object called algo, which already given to us. In fact, this is the one that was developed in a course, machine learning. It has a lot of functions that we're going to utilize. The algo, if we see, it is in the core application. As you can tell, this file, it's right here, and it's defined in the core application. So very good to put an object like that in the core because you might be using it for a lot of other projects. What does this object do? Many things, but the most important for us, without getting into the detail, we're giving them a topic. We call it chapter ID. And there's another variable which is less concerned for us for now. So this is the most important, is like we're telling him a topic, a name, okay? We keep it into the variable. So this variable self, that chapter ID, it really is the topic. We keep it inside, okay? By the way, how do I give it? It's really very simple. When we go to here, pay attention, we're inheriting from algo, and our initial or our constructor calls. This is calling the constructor of the algo, and is transferring this variable, chapter ID, is giving him a title called ueconomics, meaning that the algo automatically creates for me a variable self-chapter called ueconomics. That's the beautiful part of it. The rest is less important for us. It's for other courses. The most important thing is really to realize how do we build up the root directory. And if you notice here, this one comes from the setting file. Why is the setting variable seeds? We go again. If you remember, every project have a setting directory, and in the setting, it would go to the base. And in the base, we have a web directory. This is really referring, is automatically making sure to refer to the web directory. That's why we wrote web there so that we don't forget. So in another word, when I use setting that web directory, I refer to, it seems like it's stuck a little bit. Yeah, here we go. It's really referring to this directory. Fair enough? So this directory, web directory, referring to really to this one in the project. Okay? So what do we really do? We are, in another word, in the algo, which is doing the work for us, we're referring to the web. By the way, this is takes us one stage above, okay? One stage above, meaning it takes us to this thread. This is just another word, OS path directory name. It goes to the parents of this directory. So we're getting ready to this thread, and we're asking him, go down to data, join it. So we say threads, data. So it's taking us really to here. And under the data, we're asking him to put the title of this chapter, which is ueconomics, which is really this directory. In another word, projects root directory referring to this directory, under which, if you see, the first things we do here, it makes sure if this directory exists. If it doesn't exist, it create it, okay? So, but it will be empty, of course. After that, we telling him, you know what? We want you to make also a directory under it by the name of data set. And that's what this one does. To data path, it really is referring directly to this directory. Then, after that, we make sure that the folder exists. If it doesn't exist, we create it. So far we have really this directory. And here we go. We're actually putting those files right in here. The truth of the matter, if I really understand now, you really don't need this one because we don't really use it. Okay? Let's delete it and see if we get any problem. I don't think we should, but let's delete it. And we shouldn't get a problem. Okay? Because this is really the way it's structuring for us the things. By the way, it's creating also the image, models, but we're not going to use it for now. If you notice under the Uganda, we have also images, models. We're not using it, so we don't really care, but it does it, so we don't really care. That's really the job of the algo object. And how do I make sure that this one does the work? It's by inheriting from it. I'm inheriting, and my constructor, the only things it does is call the constructor of the algo and transfer these variables. This one we're not using. You see, we're transferring none. We don't really care. We're transferring the name of the chapter. We're dealing in new economics. It takes that one, and it makes sure that we will have this directory. Now that we have the directory, we took the two files export.xlsx, which is Excel file and import file, and put them right there. That's stage number one. Then if we, so we don't really need this one anymore. What we really need, it's this one, but what we do need, but we'll second, we'll see how. Okay, so this is the constructor. If we go to the view of our project, and we look at the index, okay, this is really what happened when we accessing the project. That's really what happened when we And do Control C so we can. It's like starting it from scratch. Okay. When we start the project and we go to the ueconomics, the first function acting, it is really this one. In the view, it's this one. And this one, what does it do? We have a title, but we're creating this object, algo UE, which is really defined here. And remember, when we're creating an object, it called the constructor. And the constructor called the constructor of the parent, which is the algo. So this command by itself already created the link, or we already defined that directory, this one. So we have that directory already exist in there. And we're going to use it. The next things we're calling for this object, we're going to call a function called getData. Bring the data. Okay. By the way, how can I bring the data if I didn't put it? So far, we have it only in the Excel. So before even that one, okay, I would like to really use get source data, which is really what it does. It takes all the data and put it in the database. Am I right, Brenda? Or upload, sorry. Sorry, not this one. I want the load data. This one, what it does is creating this object and using this function to take the data from the Excel to the database. That's stage number 2. So instead of going really to this app and just going to here, I would like, let's say, in fact, if I get even the data and it's empty, it won't help me. I would like to click on this one and explain what does it really happen. When I click on it, is uploading the data from the Excel to the database. So let's go and see how does it do it. First of all, it's creating this object and it's calling to this function of the object. So let's go to that special function. What does it do? As I said, since algo UE inheriting from algo can use its own function. Algo has a nice function that is smart enough to read the Excel file. So we're really reading those two Excel files. We only have to put the name of the file without the extension. It does already the work. From our point of view, that's really what we care. And by the way, if you look at the bottom here, it shows you how it goes. It did write print export. Okay? Then what it does, it get or create means is putting the data about the source. We have a table called source. So we'll take a pause for a second and we'll go to the data set. It's really the models. And let's look at the models in this application, not the core anymore. We want to go to here and we have the models. And we have 3 tables. The first one holds very simple table, has only one column, and inside there, we eventually create only 2 rows. One says export and one says import. Then we have another table which is linked, okay, to, by the way, it's not really linked, my mistake. It's hold only the product. Let me explain what do I mean by that. By the way, if you open this file, Excel is supposed to open it, right? Yeah. Okay, if you notice, this Excel file has in fact several columns. The first one has a variable called SITC2. We have a description and all the titles. What we do, we would like to put only those two columns inside this table. So this table is holding the first two columns. Very simple. And after we're creating this table, what we do here, first of all, by the way, if you have a good eye, we're checking if in the table source we have already a row with the name export. And if it does, the create will be false. Otherwise, the create will be true. So when it's creating a new row, it will return create to be true. Otherwise, it will be false. In fact, we already have created it. This is why it gave us false. Okay? And here I just double check if the name, if the row is here. So those two really confirming we already have a row. So the only reason why we do this part is only if it's the first time we're really trying to load the data. Assuming that we don't have the data, the create will be false, it will be true. And then what we will do, we start looping, okay, over the data in the diff export. So let's see what is diff export. Okay, what is diff export? Diff export, it really is the Excel we just read right here. See, we read the Excel. So diff export is really table in pandas. We haven't learned pandas, but just here I have Brenda to deal with it. And that table, after it's reading the Excel, it's like a table like Excel, and it has rows. And every row represents I thought it's, by the way, every rows represent, it's already open, every row represent really one row in this table. And each column, I can read the column from the row. So for the first row, if I use a SITC2, I'll read the number 0. If I use the title Y215, I'll read this number. So what do we really do here? We iterate, by the way, this is a special function of data frame in pandas. You read row by row. It keeps the index. It starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. We don't really care about that one. But what we do really, we're reading the first two columns for the first row. Remember, we're starting for the first row. We read the description and we read the title. Okay? Now, after we do that, by the way, we're printing it here. If you can see, we're really printing it here. But no, it doesn't print here because remember, we already read the data. So it's only will happen if we didn't read the data. This is a smart design. So if somebody click on it, it will not reload the data again, which doesn't make a sense. This is why we check if it was really created. If it didn't, if it's not created, meaning we already have the data, it's not going to do this one. That's really the case now. But if it didn't have the data, it will start reading the Excel, it will read the first two part, and it will print it for us. Then it create a row in the table product. And by the way, as we said a second ago, in the model, is expecting two columns. So if you look at the model, in the model, we do have only two columns, and we're creating a new row for every row in the Excel. So this is reading row by row from the Excel. And here, for every row, I'm creating a row in the table in the database. And what am I putting in the row in the table? I'm putting only two columns. Beautiful. By the way, it will here will say create if it doesn't have that row. If it does have the row, it will not do it. Okay? Then it's a little trick, which is really nice trick. we run the range from 2015 to 2019 because we know we don't have more data than that. Okay, and then we started, and I mentioned to Brenda, we can do a trick here, okay, and basically don't really rely on 2015, 2019 and try to find a better trick. But let's leave it for another time. What we do now is we go NY, let's say it's start from 2015. This one will say 2015 as a string. So we add the Y to 2015. Becomes to be the title of the column. Remind you again, when we looked at this table, we not only have the first two columns, which is SITC2 and description, we also have a column 2015. So if I want to get the 594 for the first row, I built up the title. Later on, I will read for 2016, 17, 18, 19. I'm already reading 5 numbers. Okay. Now this is that's one. So I'm reading it for the Y, and I'm putting it inside. I'm putting it inside another table called year data. This is the third and last table in the database. We created a product, but we also created another table. We call it year data. Pay attention. It's a very special table. It has a source, has a product, and a year. All of them are numbers. This one is a foreign key to the source table. This one is a product, a link, a foreign key to the product. So for every source, for every product, and for every year, we're putting a value. How is that goes with the code right in here? Pay attention. In this point, I already know, I already have the source import. Sorry, this is the second one, that one. I have the source export. And that's one I'm putting here as a first one. Then I pull the product. That's going to be the second part that I'm putting here. Later on, I'm putting the year. Remember, what is the year? The year is from 2015 for the first round internally here. The year will be 2015. For 2015, I'm putting the value from the row of the Excel. I get the value, and the value I put is the fourth variable. This is the way I'm filling up the third table. By the way, this part is only dealing for the Excel of the export. We do exactly similar code. You can see very, very similar to the import. So we're putting also the import in the same table. So what do we have in this huge table, which have 4 columns? First column tell me if it's an export or an import. The second column tell me which product it is. And the third column tell me which year it is. And the fourth column tell me the value for that year, for that product, for that if it's export or import. That's a very, very important stage of loading the data. Please do, everyone, go over it, learn it. Brenda is expert on it. She will help you. Okay, but I do expect when we get to the exam, and hopefully next week, we start doing the exam for certificate 2. I do expect everyone to understand this function. Very, very important function. What happened now? In this point, we already have the data uploaded. See, now, if I continue clicking, when I go here, Okay, and I click again on upload data. It's not going to upload the data already because you already know the first thing it does, it checks if we already uploaded it. How does it do it? I'll remind you again. I remind you again. This is really the key point, is reading a row of export. If I already have the export, it means the whole data for export already uploaded. And therefore, is create will be false, and it doesn't do this part. Okay, that's why it works so fast. If I delete the database, okay, it will redo the whole things. So that's why we don't really care. We don't need to click it again. But even if we click, it doesn't do anything. That was stage number one. Stage number two, okay, we have the application now. And we would like, when we click on export, to see the data. And here we go. We actually got the data. How did we get the data? That's stage number three. So we have to deal with two elements to understand, first of all, how the HTML has been constructed, and learn the get data function that we're going to get to in a second. Okay, we have a function called get data, and we're going to deal with it in a second. Third, in the same third issue, we have a function already load. This is done. And we have in the view, we have another get source data function. And we're going to talk about that function as well and see what does it do. Okay, so let's start. But by the way, you can tell, is this is really being called directly or not? By the way, we have an index, and in fact, the index is the one that's being called first. How do we know? Very simple. Everybody should know by now. If we go to the URLs and we don't have anything, it's going to call the index function. We go to the index function, and this is what it does. It creates this object. At this point, it really doesn't need to do anything because the upload already have done the whole work. Okay? And then we go calling this function called get data. The objective of the get data is to get the data from the database. It's very good practice. In many other projects we will be involved. So let's see what this function does. And after we know and understand that, we would understand how we present the data in that template. Okay, so we take stage number three of reading the data and also how we use it. So we'll call that one stage number three, and let's call this one stage number four. So we understand those four stages. So let's understand the get data function. How do we get the data? Okay, very simple. Stage number one, we're reading all the data from this big table. Remember, this table has 4 columns. So we're getting all the data. Stage number two is, this is something I did not teach you, and this one you need to do in order to use, again, a very powerful table in Panda data frame. By the way, PD, it's a short for Panda here. If you see, it's a library we did not study. When you come to me to machine learning, I will spend a whole session on this one. But since it's not the objective of this course, I just gave it to you, okay? So bottom line, what it does, I'm reading all the records from this one. This one, the only things it does, it makes sure that I get only those 4 columns. We have 4 columns. By the way, the only things it doesn't take, it's the ID. I don't really need the ID of the row because this table have only 4 columns and the primary key, which is creating automatically. Okay, so I'm getting this one. I'm putting it in a table, a nice table that Panda does automatically for me. And that's the first part that I need. Then, if you see here, I'm reading all the records in the source. By the way, who can tell me how many rows do I have in the table source? Find out how many we have in this table. In the source table, how many rows do we have?
We have two.
Two, very good. One for the export, one for the import. Then we have another table, product, remember? That's the second table we
Yes.
talked about. Remember? How many rows here? I have
Yes.
many. As many as products in the Excel of export and import. If there is a title repeat itself, it will not create it twice, it will create only one. Okay? And the PD really is this one hold the data itself. So this is telling me if it's export and import. This is telling me which product it is, but who hold the actual data? It's the PD. All those three I'm returning from this function. This is get data. I got the data from the database. That's stage number 3. Now we go back to the view. And let's see, what do we do with all those? By the way, this is a very smart way to get 3 types of data. 2 query set, those 2 are query set. Remember, this one, it's a Panda data frame. How do I know it's query set? And this is Panda. Very simple. Let's go back to this object. This one, it is a query set. We're reading it like we always did in Django. This one, we're reading exactly the same as we always do. And this one, we read it as a query set. We put it up as a query set, but we made sure we get only those columns. And then when I put it inside the data frame, it turns it to a Panda table. Okay, so what do I get here? 3 types of data, 2 query sets and a data frame. And the beautiful part is that Django know how to handle both of them. So what are we transferring to the template? The title and those 3 variables. Okay, the product, the source, and by the way, you notice this is my habit to do, put underscore when I'm in Django, in Python, and when I'm in the template, I took that underscore. Let's see what do we do in this one. This is a very important one. What do we do in this template? Let's look. We go to the template and let's look. Going all the way up first. And now this is the most beautiful, elegant way of doing things. We have gone to the web. We went to the W3 schools and we learned how to make a table. By the way, if you look here, we have really tabs. You see those? It goes to the export, import, and those tabs, we really copied that code from the school, the W3 school. And we really did two things, and then eventually we filled it up. So the way we started, okay, we said, okay, let's add, those, we go here, and here it is. By the way, if you have a good eye, okay, here we go. We have the body. Under the body, we have something. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then we have a div here. By the way, which is really says data on export and import. Hey, by the way, can we change that? Can we use the title? Isn't it the title what we did? We did it for that. Yeah, we can use the title, in fact, there. And then we can change the title from here. So we can really go here and go to the index. And we can really remove that one. And then control, whatever it is, right from the view. Okay? And after that, we put 4 buttons. Those 4 buttons, indeed, they are those 4 buttons, and we'll talk about them in a minute. And then, and that's the one that I want to focus first on, these 2 choices. So right under them, we did this loop, but then we did very smart. We have a div, a closed div, and inside it, we put buttons. But how many buttons we did? As many rows as in the source table. Brenda have said a second ago correctly, there's only 2 rows there. So that means that we're gonna make 2 buttons. One for the export, one for the import. But we did it in a very smart way. We said, okay, we make a button, but we give it also ID. Very important to put ID, by the way, generally speaking, especially in this case. The first button will say, of course, export, because the first row is export. And when you loop a second time, it will make another button, and we'll write import. Okay? And the rest, we have another function called open source. We talk about it in a minute. We transfer it to event and the type. If it's export, it will send export. If it's import, it will send import. And then it will write the word type. So that's really what this one does. What this one does really, by the way, look at the class table. This is really nothing but this section. This is the section. If I do right click and inspect, you can tell that really this is the div we did. You see the classes tab, and under that I will have 2 buttons. I should have 2 buttons, you see? I do indeed have 2 buttons. It's disappeared on me. Let's do it again.
It's just accident.
Okay? This is really the place that we have under the, you know, when I do right click and inspect, it will take me to this one. No, this is not this one, not this one. Why is it? Content, look. This one, class, nav, nope, nope, nope. Div, chart, nope. This one, container, nope. Why does this disappear on me? Okay, let me go down. Here it is. It's this part. And under, if you notice, it does create 2 buttons. First button, the second button. See that? And the beautiful part, the first one is calling button export, and the second one is calling button import. Both of them has the same function. When we click on them, they're going to activate those functions. But what the difference? The difference is that when I click on the first button, it will transfer a variable called by the name export. The second one will have import. So I know really which button I clicked inside this function. That's beautiful. Okay, so first of all, we created the button. If you look at the W3 school, is also creating a div for each one going with it. And please pay attention still that this one goes with this one. And you know, the library we copied from W3 does the job for us. When we click on this one, it's going to really activate this one. In minutes, we'll show how it does it. But another way, we also, so there's 2 divs that are empty. They're supposed to be in the beginning empty, okay? And later on, we fill them up with tables. In the beginning, they're really empty, okay? Let me refresh this one again. You can see that those ones are really empty. Let's go back to that place. You will see that those places are really indeed empty. You see, this one is totally empty. This one is empty. I have 2 buttons. When I click on this one, there's something happening and it fills up the data. Now you can tell this one is full with data. It's an export and it has a table under it and all what the whole data, which is beautiful. How does it do? In a minute, we talk about it. Okay? But stage number one, when we just getting into all what we have really, it's an almost empty table, empty things. We have two buttons. We have those four buttons, and two div we cannot see and are empty. Okay, let's go into the code again. And those one creating two buttons, which has this function. And we have two divs which are totally empty. When I click on the button, this function activated. Is that clear so far, guys? Yes, guys?
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Good. Very glad. Okay. Now, what happened when we're clicking on this function? This is the function that populating the data inside one of those there two div. If I click on the button that says export, it will fill it up for the export. If I click on the button that says import, it will fill up the div for the import. So let's see how does it work. We really want to understand how this function work. So let's go to it. Control copy, Control F, Control V, and let's find it. Here it is. Very interesting function, very powerful function, extremely powerful. Okay, so let's look at that. What we did a trick. We said, remember, first session in this course, I said if you download data, don't download it twice. So first time we clicked on that button, we get the source. Let's say we click up on the button that is export. So this word will say export. We go into this variable we put outside of the function. That's what we call global variable. Every function can approach that. Okay. So I go into that dictionary. This variable pages is indeed dictionary. That's the way we write dictionary in JavaScript. First, in fact, it's also in Python. And this is the way we pull up a data if there is the data. So I'm checking if pages has already a variable. One of the keys says export. If it does, it will bring me whatever that key the value of that key. Okay. For example, if this one already had something like that, export, whatever it is, okay, let's say just some empty even, this one, it will bring me nothing. Nothing, it's something, by the way, it's kind of funny. But at least you're finding the export. But if there is nothing, it will tell me your page has nothing. It doesn't exist. So what I'm checking, the first thing I'm checking, if really export exists here. If it doesn't exist, only then go and pull the data from the server. That one we studied in another scenario, so I will go over that again and again and again. And by the way, this is called Ajax. And what we do here, we're really going to the URL of the ueconomics and calling this function. Where is that function? Let's go and look for it. If we go to here, we go to the URLs. We go to the functions, get source data. That means is telling me, go to this function and activate it. Okay? And when I'm going to activate it, it means it's going to go to this view. And if we look good at this view is, as you already know, is expecting me to send him a variable called source. And how do I really send him the source variable? If we go back to the JavaScript, that's the way I send variables to the function. So I'm sending to this link in the ueconomics application, the URLs. I'm going to this link, which takes me to the get source view. And the view itself is expecting a variable called source. And by the way, what that one will hold, it's whatever I'm transferring here. Remember, when we're calling this function, we transfer export or import. If this is export, it's going to put the word export here. So the variable source will have the value export. So when I'm getting to the view and I'm pulling the variable, see, this is really confusing. When I'm pulling the variable source, indeed, this one, it's really supposed to say export. That's really just for you. I will do it this way. And so you can believe me. Print. And when I put here, source, pay, name, and just for convenience, so you can find it, click quickly, write print, and my curriculum ID times 100, so you make a dashes, 100 dashes before and after. So we can find this one quickly. I'm going to restart the server so you can really see how does it really work. So important. Okay, going back to here. I'm going to refresh the page. Nothing happened. Okay, it's empty. But when I click on export, I got the data. But before I got the data, what happened? Let's go to the flow. So important flow. I'm here in the JavaScript. It's checking if I downloaded already the export. I did not, because it was empty in the beginning. So I see it's empty, is activating this function, is calling this function, and is transferring this variable to convince you that the variable, it really is nothing but the word export. So I'm transferring on this left side is a variable. It is also a variable, but in JavaScript. And this variable hold the word export. And it takes the word export, transferring it to a variable, which is going to be transferred to this function in the view. So when I get to here, okay, when I get to here, and I'm pulling here, in fact, and don't be confused, I'm pulling a variable by the name source. And I'm telling it, taking the value of it, putting it on another variable called source name. This is now became to be Python variable. And I'm printing what that variable has, and pay attention, it says export. So I'm getting export here. And now the magic became, in the export, I'm putting the row in the table sources, the row, that will be the first row. Then I'm putting all the tables, all the rows in the product table. And pay attention, we added something interesting here. We pull the first row again. This is have all the rows of the product, but we also pulled one. We will see in a minute why did we do that. In addition, we use that row to pull all the rows in this table, but this time we told him, listen, I want you to bring me only the data for the source. In this case, it is export, and only for the first product. So in another word, remember this table have data for every source, export and import, has for all the product, doesn't matter if it's product that belongs to the export or import, has a data, okay, for all the years, meaning for 2015 up to 2019. And all what I'm asking him now to give me, only for the first product, give me for the export. Remember, we have 5 years for the export, 5 years for the import. But we would like to have data only for the export. So that's why we filter doing source equals source underscore. And remember, source underscore, it's the row from the source table that it's for the export. Remember, this is export. So I'm putting only one row of the export. And then I'm saying, when you give me the data, give it to me only for the export. That's the job of this part. Then I'm telling him, don't give me all the data for all the products. I want you to give me only for the first product. So this one, give me the first product. I filter here. So this one is really giving me only data for the first product and only for the export. And this one should have really 5 rows. Let me prove it to you. I'm going to do the same trick again. Okay, and then you can appreciate that. Very important to understand it, extremely important. Okay, I'm going to write years and I'm going to rerun the whole code again. Let's see what we get. By the way, this is a query set. Don't forget, it's not the years. It's the tables in the database for all those years. So let's go here. Restart it again. I really want you to see that. Very, very important. I'm refreshing. No data. What happened when I click on export? Click on export. I got the data. But what happened in the process? When we clicked on the export, it's happening here. This function activated. This function, get here, it says export. It check if the export exists, doesn't exist because it was empty when we refresh the page. Since it's empty, it's going to that function in this application. So it goes to this function, but it's transferring a variable source, which hold the name export. So I'm getting to this function. I'm getting to here. Okay, when I get to here, what does it really mean? It means I'm going to the views and I'm getting to this function. And please, let's see what happened in this function. We're going to go step by step. Step number 1, we got the variable source which says export. How do I know? This is really the first one.
Yes.
Then I pull the data for the source. I pull the data for all the product. Then I took only the first product. And then I filter from the table of the data. I filter only the rows that belongs to this source and to the first product. How many rows do I have there? Here I can tell. Here we go. Look at that. I get a query set. This is the first query set.
Yeah.
1.
Yes.
You see? And by the way, you can see the year 2015. That's the second one. 2016. That's the third one. 2017. That's the fourth one. 2018. And the last fifth one, 2019. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. By the way, if Brenda wanted, because we're going to use that in some way, she will really turn it to a dictionary. That would be a beautiful exercise for you. I make it. Let me do it. Let's see if that really works. That would be really interesting. We write Y for, okay, for Y. You know what? I won't confuse you. Let's leave it. I don't want to confuse you. Too much to handle anyway. Okay? We'll get to there some other time. I will do, how can we do it even better? But for now, it works perfect. It's such a small. So let's leave that as it is. Okay. We're transferring now. Please pay attention. We're transferring the years, the product, and the source. By the way, this is product. By the way, I don't know. I usually like to call it plural, S, because here, this really should be S, it's plural. Okay, I get a lot of them. Then I'll put an S here, so I won't get an error. I get the products, I get the years, and I get the source, export or import. Now that we got here, we go to the template. We will stop here after I describe the template, and next time we talk about the rest of this program. After all, this program really should be taught by for 3 or 4 sessions. So I'm summarizing only up to this point. What we're really getting here. Let's look at this new, a new template, a very small one, looks small one, but really very powerful. By the way, we're putting the title if it's export or import. By the way, whatever you see here, this is really nothing but the word you see here, export. Okay?
Yes.
Then, because we know the source, the type of the source, we have only one column in that table. And we're transferring only one row, and that row has a type source type of export. That's why type here export. Then we're making a table. Please pay attention. This is the first row. The first one is the title. So we're making a title. And that's why we really created those years. Okay?
Okay.
We're starting the title by typing the first 2 columns to be SITC2 and product. By the way, these 2 are nothing but these first 2 blocks. This one and this one. Now we need to build the title for those years. And how do we do that? We simply loop over Y in the years. Don't forget, Y is a row in the query set. And the query set has a variable called year, okay? And we
Yes.
only need only the year. If you remember here, if you look at the query set, this is the year. This is the variable year. Got it?
Yeah. Yes.
This is the year. That's what I'm putting really from each one of them. The whole things is row in the query set. The Y is really the whole row. I'm looping 5 times because years has 5 rows. I take
That's fine.
the first row. From the first row, I'm putting only the year and I'm putting it here. So this is really looped 5 times and it's creating another 5. Those ones are really these 5. Now I have a nice row with all the columns. That's what we did in this section. Very important. Okay? Extremely, extremely important. Then I'm adding another rows. Now with the data, that's the hardest part, looks like, but not really. You get used to it. What are we doing here? Remember, we have all the products. So we're looping for every product in the product table. So P, it's a query set, is that right?
Yeah.
Let's convince you. Do that one quickly. I want to do one more, so you'll be happy. I want to take this one. And I'm going to do the same things here. So you can see that product, it really is a query set with all the rows in that table. So let's put products here. And so I will not get confused. Yeah, many times I like to put here double quotation like that. So you can see it will be in a double. So let's run it again. What the heck? So we can really appreciate what we're getting. Refresh, nothing happened. Okay, nothing happened. By the way, if you go down here, you will see nothing happened. Only after I click here on the export, something happening, and I get the data. So what really happened? If you look down here, okay, oh, this is interesting. First of all, the first one, this one tells me that it's export. Then I'm pulling all the data from the table of the products. And the products, see how many I have, all the products, see how many query sets. This is the first one, this is the second one, etc., etc. You see that? Each one of them is one. There's many of them. Okay? And then eventually I'm reprinting this one in the bottom, the years queries. Okay, this is really what I'm transferring to the template. Okay, now that I got into the template, let's go back, sorry. We get to that template. By the way, pay attention, this is a different template. Now, for every one of those, let's say even this one, okay? I'm going all of them. Each one of them, I'm doing something with it. For each one of them, I'm making a row. What am I putting in the row? And that's the beauty. First of all, I'm putting P dot SITC2. Okay? This is really the index. If you look at here, this is really every row. If you look here, every P has two columns. This is the number that I'm putting, and this is the description. You see, each one of them has only two data for every product. So this is the first one. I'm putting the number. This is the number itself. And this one is the description. There's the only two things I'm using from this table. Okay? So I'm done with the first two columns. In fact, you can think about it. This is really what makes those two columns. I'm putting the first number and then the second. Let's look at this number 0 in this title. You can see it here, right in here. Okay, let's go down. Here, look at that. 0, live animal other than animals of division 03. What is the title we're getting here? Exactly this one, 0, and that's the title. Let me close this one so I can see it better. And then the next one is 1 and the title. Let's see how we see it here. What is the second one? It's really here. 1, meat and meat preparations. This is the number and this is the description. Pretty cool. That's what we're really getting in those two. But later on, we really want to pull the data from the data table. But we know that the product is linked to the table, Let's look at the model again. Please notice, in the data, we have a foreign key going to the product. And please, 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 that's so important. I'm going to test you on. I always use related name. And the related name is very, very important. If I want to know all the data of a specific product, from the product, I refer to all the rows that belongs to that product. I do product dot, and I use this name. This is the name I need to go from which rows in this table belongs or linked to this product. When we do foreign key, we're really referring to one of them here. But the truth of the matter is much more important to know how to go from one specific row in this table product to the rows in this table that are linked to. And that one, we use this one. That's why when I'm here, no surprise, I'm using P product year data. How did I get that title? This title came right from here, right from the related name. Extremely important. Moreover, By pulling this one, I'm really pulling a query set, and I want all of them. In the template, we use the that all mean give me all of them. So now what do we have really? This one give me all the data for that product, okay? And now I'm looping on that. But since I only want the data for the export, I'm conditioning that the Y will be a source of export. And Y has also a variable. By the way, how do I know that? You go to the model, you see the Y, okay? The Y, this is really the Y has a source, has a product, but it has also a variable called yield. So I'm making sure that out of all the data I'm putting from here, the year will be, okay, sorry, the source will be only for the export. Source we transferred here, if you remember the export. I make sure the Y's is only for the export because this one give me the export and the import. So I'm making sure I get only for the export. I don't need 10 of them, okay? And therefore, I'm now putting another tab for each one of them and putting the value in there. But this is very important. I give a name to each cell. What do I mean by that? Please pay attention. Also class right to make sure because those are numbers. I want them to be on the right side. What is really this one? Let's look at that. This is very important. What does it really do? Let's look at here. I claim it's really those cells. Let's do a view inspect. Please look at this one. This is really what it does. It put the 594. Remember, this was the first number. It put the class
Yes.
right, and it gave it a name, export underscore the number of the variable, the product really, and the year. We will use it later on. Very important. But I'm very consistent. You see, export the same product number, but for every year, I'm putting a different name. So each one of them get a different ID. Very important for later on for next time. Okay? But I put all the data. I want to show you what will happen if I didn't put this one. I'm going to delete this one. That will give me a mess. And let's see which kind of a mess it will give me. I'm going to refresh it again. Okay?
Okay.
Let's refresh. Close this one. Refresh. And I'm going to click export and see what we got. Total mess. Why? I got more numbers here because I got the export and those really the numbers of the import because that link, okay, that link, it gives me really the P, okay, when I'm linking it to this table, I'm getting really 10, export and import. Therefore, I must really make sure that what I want to put in the HTML to be only for the export. This one eliminate the other 5. Otherwise, I'm getting not what I really want. So when I got back to here, I will refresh and I will get HTML with all for those 5. This is really beautiful. Good job, Brenda. And then when it's done, by the way, it's a template. And that's the last part of this element. I go back to the view. When the template is done, right, we sending it back. We're sending it back to home. Okay, let me just delete all of those. Brenda, should I keep those one or should I delete them? What do you want? You want to keep those?
You can delete them.
Okay. I think by now you know them by heart, probably.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Remember, who is calling this function? Remind you, we are in the index. This is the calling that function. And whatever we're getting as a template, it comes back as a data. So really, let's print it now. Now here printing, it's already print. We should say alert. And we're gonna alert the data. So far so good. Let's look at it. I really want to see it. Okay. I'm gonna refresh. Okay. Gonna refresh. I'm gonna click on export. And here we go. I'm getting the template. See the title says HTML, then I have a TX. It's the title. That's the first, this is the first row of the table. I scroll down. I started the next one. It doesn't show you all of them, by the way. It's just because it's limited to how much it shows you online. But see, this is beautiful. You give me the 0, give me the title, and also give me the data only for the 2015. Let's see if it's good. No, it tells you you have more, but it doesn't really show it to you. Okay, and then it takes that data, that mini HTML, and put it inside. It takes this data, which is really our mini HTML that include the data for the export. It looks for the tab. By the way, do you know what this one is? This one we already know, because that's what we did on the tab. All the way to the top. All the way to the top. Please notice. This is the way we call those two divs. They are empty in the beginning. One has a tab for export. One has a tab for import.
Input.
And what it does is looking for it here. Is looking for it here. Where is it, by the way? Yeah, here it is. Is finding this element, the empty tab, and putting the data inside it. That's why inner HTML is putting it inside that div. Now that div is full. Not to, okay, and that's the way we really seeing the data. And after that, to make sure that we don't do it over and over and over, we're updating this empty dictionary. We tell him, you know what, for export, write the number 1. Really, this one, what this one does, it will make it to say like that. It will say export, and we'll write the number 1. But that's enough for me. Why it's enough? Because next time you click on it, this is not empty. If it is not empty, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to do that again. Everybody got it? That's the beauty of the design. That's the way we're getting this part of the function, pulling the data and presenting it to me. I'm going to delete it, of course, otherwise it will never give the export. Okay, so we got in this session up to this part. Next time, we're going to talk about this part. That's an easy part. Theoretically, you should know it because we have done it many times. Okay, this is really the only thing is really make sure to show you that table. But we'll talk about it next time. I would like to stop here because I think that's enough for one time. We already have learned when the whole thing's uploading the data from Excel to the database, and then how we're calling the data from the database and pushing it to the template, to a mini template, and from the mini template, we're presenting it inside another div, like we're doing here. Next time, We understand the click. By the way, the click, it's really showing also the data, and that's what we'll talk next time, which is this part. We didn't talk about it today. That's really less important. By the way, this is one we copied almost exclusively from W3 schools. That's their code, really. The only thing is really showing you that one. Okay? And after we do that, next time we talk about how do we click on one of them, downloading also the import, and then when I click again, it show me the chart. Okay? That's what we'll do next time. I think it's enough for one session. Is that right, Brenda?
Yes.
So I will stop the session now, unless anybody has any questions. I'll be more than happy.
Yeah.
Any question, guys? This is hard. This is not easy. Is that right, Brenda? It's hard. You have to go over
Yes,
it
it is.
many times. Okay? And
Yes.
on Sunday, we will, today is Sunday. On Wednesday, we do second part. What we will do tomorrow and after tomorrow there is no session. Tomorrow is a Jewish holiday, so we don't do any things. On Tuesday, I'm going to go back to have a session around 12 o'clock for building up the website for education like we did for the Fab House and all of that. That's where we'll do a special series on building websites and we record them. And we move to building up a web page for colleges, high schools, and let's give another things to Jimmy's team that he's going to build up a team of marketing and with the help of Jerome and all of you guys to how to market it to high schools. We saw high schools in Uganda and worldwide, even in America, many of them don't have a functioning website. That could be a big market for us and it's excellent exercise for you. So as we do that, you learn a hell of a lot. Okay? Wednesday, we'll finish the second part of this recording. Together, Brenda, you can already start writing the first section. And after Wednesday,
Yes.
you can start doing a write-up for the second part. Okay? Daniel, everything's cool? Where's Jonathan? Where's Jonathan?
Next to me.
Where is he? Where's your hand, Jonathan? Yeah. Now I see you in both cameras. Good. Jonathan, this is the education. You're going to be the president of that business one day. It will be a business by itself. Remember what Amos said. You'll be the president of the education section of Academy City. Okay, have a nice week. So,
Excuse me, doctor.
yeah, go ahead.
Doctor. Yes, about Joram that you work upon him on the admin staff.
Yeah, I thought that Jerome will be really joining you and Jerome as to be like your student to catch up. Okay, and I think Jimmy is also working with you, and I want Jimmy to know everything because Jimmy going to be the person eventually I would like to talk to clients and maybe someone else will help him as well. So Jerome and Jimmy, Jeremiah and you, Danielle, will now the team that deal with those templates that we're designing. And as
Yes,
we go,
doctor.
I'm really waiting for the first customer. And after that, you take my word for it, it will go by itself. By the way, Jim, how is that going with that church? I think it was, whatever it is.